Think about the exact moment someone hits the pinnacle of their career. They hold up a glass award, the crowd erupts, and a reflexive thought takes hold. I did this. I am self-made. This is the ego performing its primary function. It observes the final result and immediately claims 100% of the equity. But taking total credit creates a hidden psychological trap. If you convince yourself that you are the sole cause of your success, you implicitly accept that you are the only person responsible for maintaining it. This solo ownership creates a state of constant comparison. If you believe you are the only source of your value, someone else's rise feels like your personal decline, and the pressure to hold up the structure alone breeds a persistent fear of failure. The self-made label is a cultural fiction. Subscribing to it dismantles our peace of mind, requiring a more accurate way to process our own achievements. Thousands of years ago, the Kena Upanishad diagnosed this exact anxiety. It suggested that our internal distress comes from a basic misunderstanding of how power actually flows. To correct this, the text prescribes a practice called the ego audit, or Ahankara ka Atma Nirakshan. The audit functions as a forensic accounting of the actual variables that generate human action. The process begins with a foundational question from the text. By whose will does the mind function? This forces us to look past our own effort to find the underlying energy. This is the starting balance of the ego. It assigns itself all the credit for the achievement, leaving zero room for external factors. An honest audit requires a massive deduction for our family foundation. We subtract a huge share for the early stability and sacrifices of parents. Next, we account for our expertise, requiring us to reassign credit to the teachers and mentors who built the tools we use. We also deduct the share owned by society and the infrastructure of the community around us. The final adjustment accounts for the biological baseline. We credit the health of our bodies and the planetary forces that make life possible. When the ledger is finished, the solitary I is responsible for only a tiny fraction of any victory. Arrogance is revealed as a simple mathematical error. These truths were first articulated in the presence of the Himalayas, landscapes that naturally dwarf human ambition. The Kena Upanishad tells the story of the Devas, the gods of fire and wind, who had just won a great war. Like a modern professional holding a trophy, the gods were blinded by their own narrative. They believed their own power had won the day, ignoring the source of that power. They were only humbled when they realized that without the supreme reality, Brahman, they couldn't even burn a blade of grass or move a single straw. The story reminds us that just like the gods, our ego creates a spotlight effect, showing us our own work while hiding the macro forces that make that work possible. You can break this spotlight effect by running a mechanical audit on your own life. Draw a line down the center of a page. On the left, write an achievement you usually take full credit for. On the right, list every contributory factor: your mental health, the teachers who trained you, supportive coworkers, and the natural world. Seeing those two columns side by side changes your perspective. You realize you aren't an isolated actor, but a supported part of an enormous network. There is a common fear that decentering the ego lowers your self-worth. In practice, the opposite happens. You gain a clearer perspective on the vast resources you actually have at your disposal. As the ledger balances, the pressure of solo maintenance drops. Relief follows the realization that you are not a solitary pillar holding up the world. When you recognize that the same universal forces are powering every achievement, comparison loses its sting. Another person's success becomes evidence of a shared network rather than a personal threat to your status. True humility provides a clear, objective map of reality, the necessary condition for lasting mental peace.